Welcome back to If I Ever Live to Be. I'm super excited. We've got a new episode today, and I have Mike Milligan joining me. He is founder of One Oak Financial. And in fact, you're on track to be recognized by the Inc. 5000 this year. So welcome, Mike. That's fantastic.
We are. We also it's for you, first of all, great to be here. You have an amazing podcast. I thought I'd be episode 50, but I don't think I'm quite there yet. So congratulations.
Yeah. I've got it's funny because someone said that to me. They were like, congratulations. That was like 45 episodes. And I was like, have I
Yeah.
really done 45
It
episodes?
they go by so fast, don't they?
They really do. They do. And we didn't talk about this, Mike, prior to the show, but I feel like I haven't been in podcasting since before it was cool.
Oh, yeah.
I got my start in radio about 10 years ago.
Oh,
The I don't think any of the radio stations that I work for, even my summer interns, are still in existence here in Georgia. They have all closed.
there's a little known fact that I've never really shared on podcasting before. I'm just only in a book that I've written.
Yeah,
When I was 14 years old, I actually did voiceovers for an AM station in my hometown. Now
very cool.
I was 14, but I also was the PA announcer for the local high school and Legion baseball team, and, most people didn't even know who I was. It was a small town, but they didn't know it. So I've almost been doing I've been using the microphone for almost 40 years now, 35. I'm not quite into my mid-50s yet, but the microphone is the most powerful tool. It's just amazing how it's transformed from, like, the pulpit in churches to radio to YouTube and the internet now to I mean, there's stages. We all go to
Yes.
conferences where there's 2, 3, 5, 800 people, and there's 6 or 8 different speakers up there. The microphone is a powerful tool, Whitney, and so I'm glad that you're using it to lift up others along this way.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I mean, that just makes my day to use what I feel is a God given skill. So, and
Right.
I love doing it.
Well, thanks for mentioning also that One Oak Financial is on track to be Inc. 5000 this year, but
Yeah.
we also just got notified here in the last week that after an employee survey that we were also recognized as a great place to work.
Very
And,
cool.
we're also one of the few financial companies in America that is B Corp certified. It's a rigorous process to where, very few companies, companies like Patagonia, Cotopaxi, a couple of very few restaurants, very few financial companies, but companies that are certified that put impact over profit and put the people, the environment, and the community before anything that the ownership gets. And so we are a company on a mission, and that mission is to help people be. I don't even know if you realize what One Oak stands for, but it stands for one of a kind. So people to be live a unique life and to break free from like one size fits all financial planning that permeates the industry right now.
Yes. Well, and I love that you went there because I was thinking as you said that, I thought to myself, really, the being voted a great place to work is really more important and more special than the Inc. 5000. Like that Inc. 5000 is a great list to be on, but the
Right.
fact that you are on that list and you still are loving on your employees, that's amazing.
And I will say, and it's not just me loving on our employees, it's our employees loving on each other. It's
Other.
amazing how, we have a young woman in our firm who's been here for 5 years who, for fun, her fun in life is going out and running races, but she just doesn't run a 5K or a 10K for by herself. She normally gets into races where she's pushing wheelchairs
Wow.
of handicapped kids who want the experience of finishing a 5K, and she's out there doing that. We have somebody else in our office who is an advocate for, foster children in the system, and we celebrate these things within the company, and don't even get my team started about fostering dogs, right? Or animal shelters. Oh my gosh, that is their passion. I think 80% of our employees have fostered or adopted a dog
Wow.
from an animal shelter.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, and I love that you highlighted that, Mike. And I will say, I think so much of it starts from leadership. I feel like once leadership kind of communicates down that this is okay, this is how we work, we love on each other, we support one another. I feel like that gives everybody else almost that permission to be able to be open like that.
Yeah, it wasn't easy, right? We all have unique goals and dreams in life,
Yeah.
but I think life experience, having been in a financial industry for over 26 years now, starting in the corporate environment where I was sitting around tables, like
Mhm.
conference tables on Monday morning at 9 a.m., where the messages and the themes were profit over people. Uh, Names were lost in a system.
Yep.
Stories got converted to account numbers. It was just not, it's just not where I wanted to be. I did it for 12 years, but people are people are unique, and they have your goals are not my goals. Your dreams, your bucket list is not my bucket list. And the thing that we all know, we all have people that we have lost along the way. And when we lost them at the end of their life, nobody ever mentioned, I wish I would have worked more. They always say, I wish I would have spent more time with, or I wish I would have visited, or I wish I would have done. That's the one thing I think, that after being in that corporate world for a dozen years and then taking that perspective on our business. That's why we give permission, for permission. We give permission for our employees to live a unique, one of a kind life, to treat our clients in their unique way, to meet, kind of meet them where they are, versus saying this is our process and this is what you have to adapt to. No, we don't adapt people to our process. We adapt our process, our knowledge, our expertise to where people are. And personally, I have this mission where I want to, just three simple words: educate, coach, plan. That's all I want to do in my life. And if I could do those three things and do some of that every day, my day is full. And I love doing those three things.
Yeah. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about that, Mike, of that transition period between being in corporate and then saying, you know what, I'm going to go out and start my own business and do this in a better way because it's still a service. I think sometimes that can get lost on us as, there are still services that are needed in the world. We can still provide a service, but we can do it different and we can do it better.
And still make a profit.
Yes.
We have we have all, as individuals, been somewhat institutionalized. Some people would call it brainwashed. I just call it programmed. I mean, if you think
Yeah.
about it, Um, we all know the secret, literally the secret of McDonald's. It's 2 all beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun. They give us the recipe to the burger that they've sold billions of over
Yeah.
and over again. Yet, the most popular item sold, I think to this day, is still the Big Mac. They have built a process. If you walk into McDonald's in Sacramento or Nashville or Mobile, Alabama or New York City or Orlando, you're getting that sandwich. That model, because of its success, has moved over to other industries. The financial world is no different than that. I can tell you, of the top 10 investment companies in America, I can tell you what their secret sauce is. I can tell you exactly I can tell you the recipe you're going to get if you walk into Fisher Investments or Edward Jones. And it's
Yeah.
no secret what they do. It's no secret and it's also no secret what they do not do. They'll tell you, like, right on their website, we don't do tax planning. Well, see, taxes are the biggest expense anybody has in their life, and people and financial help really want help with the biggest things, yet they don't do it. And yet people will say, that is my financial planner.
Yeah.
And a financial planner should address the biggest issues in the world: taxes, fear and anxiety, right? Of, like, running out of money in retirement, the end of life decisions where people don't want to be, or they don't want to trap their kids into a life of caring for, you know, aging parent, and aging parents want to die with dignity. And then ultimately, it's like the legacy piece, right? I want to leave an organized estate free of taxes and charges and drama in my family to the next generation. I love you. See, those four things I just mentioned, taxes, retirement, long term care, and legacy, are pieces that very few financial people have, but they encompass the 10 biggest problems that people face in their life. And by the way, we address those in our company, and we also do investments. See, investments is not first for us. It's part of what we do to alleviate those, the top 10 concerns that people have in their life.
Yeah. Well, and that's fascinating, really, because if you think about it, all of those things, what's the phrase? Two things in life are guaranteed, death and taxes.
They are. Yeah.
And that's what you're saying, like, so many financial institutions avoid, and you're tackling that first. Well, that makes total sense to me. If I have those two things essentially taken care of, then the goal is I would have that room to do additional things on the other side, which is that investment.
Well, the investments, but it also frees you up to then go do those deathbed things. So on the deathbed, I want to travel more. I want to
Yes.
spend more time with. I would have liked to have tried. My wife, we live in Puerto Rico, Whitney, and I mean, I guess that's something that we should tell your audience is like if taxes are the biggest expense in your life, right? My wife and I have intentionally moved to Puerto Rico to address that head on. We are high income earners that pay single digit taxes to the United States. And I mean, it's almost unfair that we live in paradise and we also pay a very little amount in taxes. But one of the things we do is when we look out the window of our condo, we live right on the ocean, and every day we see these kite surfers. And they're I mean, they are having so much fun, right? And we see all ages, right? We see the 12-year-old doing it. We see the young kids taking lessons, but we also see the older active people out there doing it. Guess what we want to perfect? We wanna be really good kite surfers. And most people will be like, That is just that is a crazy thing," until you see it, right? When you see it on a daily basis, you really wanna do it, and there's all these things that we see in our life that we I and social media has made it even easier to see things. Like, I see people hiking Machu Picchu, so we went and did it. I see people hiking Rainbow Mountain, we went and did it. The Dolomites, Geneva, Vienna, Budapest, right? A cruise around the British Isles, Mediterranean cruise, every Caribbean island almost you can imagine. We visited the national parks. See, I'm not even 50 yet. I'll be 50 this year. And we are living this one of a kind life because we don't want to have deathbed regrets. We
Right.
want to have something that, at the end of life is, man, I'm so on our deathbed, we want to be we want to be able to say, I am so glad I did that with you. I am so glad we got to see it. I've read this amazing, we Macklemore, the great philosopher, said we have two deaths in our life, and I'm a spiritual person, very much like you are, Whitney. But just the fact that he says we had these two deaths in life is hilarious to me. The physical day you die and the day your name is spoken for the last time on earth, and that difference is your legacy, like it's your
Mm.
earthly legacy,
Mhm.
and that the legacy is created by how you live. It's not like how much money you leave behind. It's
Mhm.
it's how
Mhm.
you live. I mean, we remember George Washington because he helped birth a country. Right? We remember Adolf Hitler because of the harm he did,
Right.
right? That distance between your death and the time your name is spoken, there's a lot of good people that live these long second lives, and there's a lot of bad people. But it's about what you do. And that's what we want to inspire people to do at One Oak. We want people to realize that they are unique. And if they take care of the biggest financial hurdles that everybody that rents space in their head, if you take care of those and it's written down on a piece of paper, the financial plan is the most powerful tool for giving you emotional comfort that will then free you up to go do all of these things. And that's ultimately what we want to do. People are unique. We want them to live a unique one of a kind of life. And if they in order to do that, you have to have not a one size fits all plan, not a not a a Big Mac investment strategy. You need a total financial plan that is unique to you, the life you want to live.
Yeah. When I love kinda as we were first connecting and you sent over some of your information, I love this concept of own your company and your future.
Yeah.
And I would love for you to dive into that and specifically what that means, just because I feel like it's hard to grasp the weight of that unless you do own your own business. But I would also share with anyone who's willing to listen if you have an idea or the means and the ability to own your own business, I cheer people on to do that. I mean, it requires a lot, but the freedom I feel like is worth the payment.
There is before I answer that one, I will tell you one thing. There is a lot of W-2 employees that live one of a kind lives. They maximize vacations. They wrap they
Yeah.
wrap vacation times around holidays to extend out periods of time to go do things.
Or
They they bank PTO from one time to the next time. They save enough money to be able to retire earlier. Some of my greatest clients and my greatest accomplishments of financial planners is being able to show, 50-year-olds how they can walk away from a 9 to 5 and still and just maybe do some consulting when they want to,
yeah.
but then go work to work. But ownership is different than punching a clock. There's no
Mhm.
doubt about it. One thing is I don't believe everybody is destined to be an entrepreneur, but it doesn't mean and I guess what I'm really saying is everybody's not destined to be an enterprise entrepreneur
Right.
where you have 50, 80 employees. You can be a solopreneur,
Mhm.
and we don't make those distinctions between those 2 a lot. An enterprise entrepreneur is somebody who's going to build a business that has multiple locations
Yeah.
with dozens to hundreds of employees. A solopreneur maybe is just somebody who owns and maybe has either a virtual assistant or one person manning a
Yes.
virtual office or a home business, making calls for them. That solopreneur is really the backbone of the US economy. And most people don't realize what it is. I mean, most people think, well, Amazon, it's the old 80/20
Right.
rule, right?
Right.
20% of the biggest companies generate 80% of the 80% of the revenue that pays 80% of the salaries in America. Yeah, it's true. But 20% of solopreneurs are the ones that are out there doing the work that has to be done. They're the one volunteering at the Salvation Army. They're the ones in the school systems volunteering in the PTO, parent teachers organization. They're the ones that on a Tuesday can go help the widow, right, with things that are necessary in their home. See, profit is not everything, and we've been told that it is. But as
Mhm.
an owner, there's more to life. Yes, you need enough money to live on. Yes, you need money to be able to make an impact, but
Right.
it is not everything. It is not everything that this life has, and unfortunately, we fall
Mm.
in that trap a lot of times where we think it is. There's a great quote that I see all the time that I heard a few years ago. This ancient guy said, "I looked in your cup to see if you had enough. You looked in my cup to see if I had more than you." That difference says everything. We are not the same. Pay attention to what people measure. And there are so many people that are doing that are entrepreneurs, solopreneurs that are not looking from an envious standpoint, right?
Right.
Of well, what other people have. They're not trying to keep up with their neighbor. They are literally trying to make the most impact and do the most good for their family first, maybe their church, their community second, or the organizations that they feel empowered or passionate about. But then they're also doing it so that they can reduce stress and fear and have better health, make better life choices, and see more of this world.
Yes. I love that, and I love the distinction and that differentiation that you highlighted
Mm.
too, Mike, of just the different kind of owners as well. All right. I have to know this story about selling collared sandwiches.
Oh, yeah, speaking of
First of all,
solopreneurs,
where are you from? Because you have to be from the South.
I'm from a little town in North Carolina called Laurel Hill.
Okay, there it is.
And so you've seen the show, Andy Griffith Show.
Yes,
Maybe some of your listeners have heard that.
yes.
That is Laurel Hill. Actually, Laurel Hill may be even was smaller than even Mayberry. Um, uh, we
I will
didn't
be
have
whistling in my head the rest of this afternoon,
right.
by the way.
So good. It's such a good show. But it is, this in this small town, we didn't have a stoplight when I was growing up. We had no fast food restaurants. I mean, the restaurant in town was called Mamie's, and it was this little, like, stop along the highway, like the two-lane highway that came through that people would stop and get a
Yeah.
burger, fries, and keep going. Had a couple gas stations, but in this town, I can attribute, like, who I am as a person and, through a lot of therapy, right? Through a lot of emotional digging deep into emotionals and finding like my money scripts, like my first memories of money and, my first memories of a lot. I can trace back to who I am to my grandparents. I was a, I was a my mom was a high schooler when she had me. My father or sperm donor did not want to be part of our life. My mom made a courageous decision in the mid 70s, right? Roe versus Wade was happened. She could have easily taken the much easier path in life, but she's my hero because she didn't. She decided to that my life was more valuable than her suffering, her and she's absolutely amazing. She's one of my best friends. Matter of fact, when we go out together now, people will look at her and say, "I did not know you had a younger brother." And let me say that again. That's what they were saying 10 years ago. Now they're saying, "I didn't know you have a brother." In a few years, they'll be saying, "I didn't know you had an older brother." Right? Because she's an amazing woman, a multiple time cancer survivor. But anyway, my grandparents, getting back to college sandwiches, my grandparents were who I spent a lot of time with because my mom was working. Well, when I was 11, my grandfather, who owned a construction company, had to stop working, physical limitations. And my grandmother, and they did not have a 401k or a high yield savings account or an emergency fund. They didn't even know what that stuff was. They kept some cash and some Folgers coffee cans up in the shelf. Well, my grandmother had to figure out what to do because there's the love of her life and physical pain, suffering. No income was coming in, so she did what she did best. She started cooking, and so she would make collard sandwiches. Collards, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's with a couple variations. It's steamed collards seasoned with ham hocks, but the bun was deep fried cornbread. And she would make
Wow.
that yeah, it's just if you're from the South, your mouth is watering when I say
Yes.
this. And it is, and I'm here I am 11 years old, she's making these, and I'm like and she puts them in a cooler, and I'm like and she's like, "Come on, let's go." And I'm like, "Okay." And so, there we are. We're, like, at construction sites where, my grandfather used to work, and she's out there selling them. People are like, "How much?" And she just says, she out of nowhere, she just said $5. I don't think she really had a concept of, like, what things cost because she never
Mhm,
went out to
mhm.
restaurants. She just said $5. And people just, "Here it is, here it is." Now that was at a time when you could go and get that Big Mac for $1 at McDonald's, right? So people were giving her $5 and I remember going and she had maybe 30 or 40 a day and she would sell them all. And then I remember us maybe stopping by Bell Atlantic and her making a phone bill. And I remember her coming out and like the relief. I remember I could see it right now in my face, like in my mind, I could see the relief on her. And like I got that paid, right? And then it was like, what's next? And so we just kept doing it. And then eventually she heard we had a festival in town called the John Blue Festival, and she set up a tent there and she made 100 sandwiches for 2 days. And she sold out on Friday at like 3 o'clock. And that night, I mean, I still remember I'm 12 years old at this point. We go back to her house and it was like all hands on deck. And I mean, we're doing like everything. And I think that night we didn't sleep much. And I think we were able to get like 200 more made. And I mean,
Oh,
it was all
wow.
night. It was all night until the morning. And what she also did that night is, there's a process to making them. So she started making some cakes because she loved to bake too. And so she ended up making like 10 chocolate cakes that night, cutting them into slices. Well, we went back the next morning and by 1 o'clock she sold out. And I remember sitting at her table and I was the one that was helping count the money. Like, I would literally we were done, I pulled out there was so much money at that John Blue Festival. I just nobody knew what to do. Like, everybody was saying, "Here's 100," and we're putting in piles. "Here's 200," we're putting in piles. And so I just got a notebook out of my book bag, and I just started writing this stuff down. And so we took the Folger coffee cans that she had, and we'd put a number on them, and in the notebook was how much money was in that can. And we would just storm up there. That year after that festival, my grandfather got diagnosed with terminal cancer,
Mm.
and 5 months later, he was gone.
Oh,
And
wow.
so now she had lost the love of her life,
Yeah.
really didn't have a Social Security check. I remember seeing her Social Security check one time, and it was like $73. And it was a paper check that came in. She would go to the bank and she would get it cash and she'd put it in the Folgers coffee cans. And she just didn't trust the system. But eventually, um, I helped her go open her first bank account. She had a 3rd grade education. She couldn't read well. But I helped her open the account, and I saw this guy wearing a coat and tie there. And I was like, "Man, that guy's a sharp dressed guy." So I got to know him and asked him what he wanted to do. I wanted to wear a suit and tie one day. And the only other person I knew that wore it were the preacher men, and I did not want to be a preacher for a lot of reasons. Like, I didn't I wanted to go to church on Sunday, but I didn't want to miss football in the afternoon,
It's
right?
its own tough job.
So I got to this banking thing happened, and so from collared sandwiches, like, from my granny selling these things, and what I've come to realize about my granny is she wasn't selling collared sandwiches. She was selling love. She was selling the widow's story. She was selling the reputation of the family for being a hard worker, from getting up and doing 'em, and I see that in her, right? From the time that, my pa, who you could look around town and see the things that he had built and the friendships that he had made, to her, that John Blue story where she sold out the first day, and instead of just not coming back the next day, she stayed up all night with their children and her grandkids. They're helping her. And when people are seeing this story of me explaining this to her, they're seeing themselves in, like, their home that they grew up in. Guys, we didn't do this in a 4,000 square foot house. We did this in a 10 by 60 single wide trailer.
Right.
With when I say sitting around the dining room table, it wasn't a dining room table. It was a 4-person table crammed in to
Mhm.
an 8 by
Mhm.
10 kitchen. We didn't have anything. I grew up in poverty and I didn't know it. But here we are later. I mean, here we are now. We manage 10 figures, One Oak Financial, from collard sandwiches to where I'm now. We manage 10 figures of assets for our clients. We are recognized as one of the 5,000 fastest growing companies in America. There is a story. If you realize where you come from, for me, it's collard sandwiches. If you realize where you come from and look at the lessons that you learned along the way, and put them into the context of what you want to be and who you want to help in life, there's a reason America, with all of its faults, is the greatest country in the world. Is
Yes.
because we have the ability to go from a no stoplight collared sandwich making town to a to an Inc. 5,000 company, right? That is making an impact in putting people over profit and making sure that people's names do not get lost in a system. And we never talk about somebody's account number. We talk about your money making your dreams come true. And that's where collard sandwiches are. That's why they're so impactful for me.
Yes. Yes. I love that story. Brings my some of my own nostalgic memories. But I feel like it's really the perfect segue, Mike, and I appreciate you so much. I know you were sharing a couple of the previous episodes that you had listened to. And so you know that my last question that I ask every guest is this concept of what do you want to live to be? I'm excited to hear your answer. I feel like I maybe know a little way of what it's going to go. And I feel like at the end of your answer, I'm going to be telling you it's something that you're already living out. But I would love to hear what your answer to that is.
I want to live where I am. I told you that I have this 3-word professional mission: educate, coach, and plan.
Yeah.
But personally, I have a deeper mission than that
Mm.
in everything I do, and it's to never miss a moment. I this weekend, and I know this will air after we're actually recording, but this weekend I get to go witness my son graduating from the Uniform Service University. He's in the military, and
Oh, thank you.
he's graduating from medical school. Again, he's a product of that collared sandwich trailer, right? He wasn't born yet. He knew her. He knew that place. But here we are now out of that trailer producing a doctor. I've got a daughter in Birmingham, Alabama, who is solving a food crisis. She is trying to make Birmingham a zero waste food city. And all of this food that would typically go in the dumpsters, in the landfills are going to the nonprofit she's working at. They're
Wow.
redistributing what they can to people. They're redistributing what they can't to people, to animals. And what can't go to the animals, they're putting it back in the ground for compost. And she is living a unique, one of a kind life. So I've got an anesthesiologist. I've got somebody who's my daughter who's solving the food crisis. And I've got another daughter coming through college who wants to be on the mission field, and she's doing an internship with Samaritan's Purse this summer. I never want to miss a moment. I don't want to miss a moment in what they're doing. I don't want to be so engrossed in projects that if my wife came in here and said, "Let's go try this kite surfing thing," I couldn't go do it. I just want to live unique, one of a kind lives, but I also want to make an impact along the way. So
Yeah.
never miss a moment and make an impact. Those are like my two things. Is
Yeah.
if I can live to be those 2 things, I think I'll live a pretty full life.
Yeah. Well, I do. I see so much of that and what you're already doing, helping others to live that way. And even just noticing the small things, right? Noticing the kite flyers. Is that who
Kite
they are
kite
outside your
kite
window?
surfers, kite
Kite
surfers.
surfers, yes. Outside your window to just living in those little moments. So I think that's so much of it is realizing something when it's happening and just the ability to pause and live in that moment.
Yeah. I hope your listeners who are religious followers of what you're saying, I hope they get some inspiration out of this today. I hope they go out and try something new or, add something to their bucket list, or if they're struggling, right, to see where their money aligns to their purpose. I
Yes.
mean, I'd love to speak with them and
Yes.
and help bring true alignment where they're not doing something one size fits all process driven, but they're doing something uniquely one of a kind with their money and ultimately with their life also.
Absolutely. Well, if you will, Mike, please do share your contact information, how they find you, and then I'd love for you to plug your podcast as well.
Well, thanks for that. I mean, the podcast is just called Ideas by Mike. That's an easy one. You could find that on all the social places, the same where you find Whitney's podcast. We have conversations with thought leaders, academic folks, personal coaches, retirement specialists that are somewhat unique. If you ever listen to my show, you'll see that there's a song written for every show because I'm a closet creative. Also, there's
I
a new song on every show. But then, for like, if you want to talk professionally, if you want to talk about finances, you want to talk about your purpose for your money, and get those big questions answered about taxes, retirement income, investments, long term care, and legacy, you can just go to oneoakfinancial.com. It's the number one oak, OAK, financial.com. And if you a third thing, Whitney, if people wanna know a little bit more about me, you can go to one of the biggest websites out there, Amazon.com, and just search Mike Milligan, the one of a kind financial plan. And my book, the first book I wrote is out there. It's how you say goodbye to one size fits all and hello to what actually works.
I love that. Thank you, Mike, for coming on, for sharing your story, and also reminding us to slow down a little bit. I feel like that's a lot of this, right? Is just slowing down, listening, reassessing. But we are called to be good stewards
We
of what
are.
we have. So, thank you for sharing those insights today.
Absolutely. Thanks, Whitney.